they're brave, they're not bold to ride the unrideable road, to love branches from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star. Don't matter how hopeless, don't matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march in hell for an heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I lay to my rest. And the world will be better for peace, that one man stood and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable
Einstein. 1,000 times a day, I remind myself that my material and spiritual life depend on the fatigue of other men, living and dead, and that I must work to give in equal measure that which I have received and continue to receive. Albert Einstein. A New Zealand government commission conducted an inquiry into chiropractic. It lasted for 20 months, and it was conducted in Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the United States. It cross-examined under oath the leading educators, doctors, and researchers in the field of manipulation of the vertebral column. The study started in January 1978 and ended in October 1979. The report compiled and analyzed 3,638 pages of transcripts, 1,600,000 words, received, I repeat, under oath, and summarized it into a book of 377 pages. Some of its conclusions are fascinating.
Da applicare al sistema sanitario. È basata scientificamente.
Number 1, spinal adjusting is a vital, impressively safe, and clinically effective form of health care. It is scientifically based and uses the existing body of medical and scientific knowledge. Number 2, chiropractors have, beyond reasonable doubt, a more thorough training in spinal mechanics and spinal manual therapy than any other health professional. Number 3, The other healthcare professions should defer spinal adjustments to chiropractors since they are the best qualified. Part-time and vacation courses should not be encouraged. Number 4, spinal adjustments must only be done by full-time practitioners of the art. Number 5, there must be total cooperation between all healthcare professionals since it represents a more scientific posture, is in the public's interest. Number 6, there should be chiropractors in all hospitals as part of the healthcare team. It is better for body alignments to be relieved, if possible, by natural rather than artificial or chemical means. I repeat, this is the result of a 20-month study undertaken by the New Zealand government. Professional formation. How did that tree get so big without medicine? The movement of cerebrospinal fluid is not something beyond your comprehension. The body is constructed to survive. The physical injuries that we receive and that cause internal bleeding are one thing in our bodies, but inside the brain, inside the spinal cord, from the brain to the sacrum, the body cannot allow any internal bleeding. And so it builds itself a network of filters at the base of the brain to filter the blood which will go inside the ventricles and the spinal cord. Here, the fluid movement is very slow. Anyone who has ever gone to examine his cerebral spinal fluid, a spinal tap, knows that the headache that follows can last up to a week while the body reestablishes the balance between these basic liquids. If one of the vertebrae is out of alignment, due to any overload of our capacities, tiredness, stress, worry, intoxication, lack of fitness, a trauma, or whatever, so that it moves out of position and momentarily interrupts the flow of cerebrospinal fluid, every function of the body is compromised. That's why we say that chiropractic doesn't treat illnesses and does not offer therapy for the body. It's because chiropractic is more precisely a specific biomechanical and neurophysiological interior maintenance at a deeper level than illness and symptoms. This is an idea which is not easy to hear, understand, and appreciate in the midst of all the propagandistic brainwashing that's directed at us by the unimaginably rich and powerful pharmaceutical multinationals. When the hips are off-center, the movement between the sacrum at the base of the spine and the occipital area at the base of the skull lose their harmonious action and create a level of imbalance in the pumping of the cerebrospinal fluid within the central nervous system. When the chiropractor frees the vertebral column from subluxation and therefore from interference of neurological transmission, he or she is at the same time assuring the proper flow of cerebrospinal fluid. The more you study the body and the mind, the more you realize the immensity of universal intelligence at work in all living things. In fact, some splendid work has been done with children suffering from Down's syndrome through the collaboration of chiropractors and osteopaths, above all in England, re-establishing movement of the cranial bones and in the spinal column, and subsequently the movement of the cerebrospinal fluid in young babies before the cranial soft spots mature and harden incorrectly. Next time, we'll talk about lymphatic drainage, a very poorly understood subject which is usually treated very superficially. My first patient, myself. Here we are again at the section in which I talk about my own health experience from the point of view of the patient, in the fervent hope of giving you a greater insight into a new and better way of looking at your own problems.
Quando non siamo in grado di soddisfare la nostra fame, perché I cibi che abbiamo scelto l'abbiamo messo in una combinazione sbagliata.
Last time we talked about air in the stomach, saying that when we are not able to satisfy our hunger because we have combined the foods incorrectly or in the wrong moment, our life stops running smoothly. It's like planning a car journey and discovering that the car consumes a lot more gas than we expected, so that the expense of the trip is higher than it should be. Consequently, we have to leave something out that we had previously planned. Today I want to talk to you about trembling hands. I had this problem during a particularly happy period in my life, so it didn't depend on emotional stress. I belonged to the National High School Honor Society, had a lot of friends, played in a wonderful band, and was living right on the outskirts of town among forests and fields. Our family doctor, who, as I have said several times, had the complete trust and respect of my parents, had no explanation or solution for my shaking hands. I can tell you now that if I expend more energy than I have available, because I digest badly, the fuel that should be burnt by the muscles is insufficient in quality and quantity. The doctor asked if when I was meditating, which we will talk about another time, my hands shook less. I said yes. Meditation is looking for silence and clarity, a form of prayer. So his diagnosis was that it was a nervous problem. Now, many years later, I can see what a stupid thing to say that was. I had had useless surgery, useless nausea for years, glasses, years of medicines for allergies, which I wouldn't have needed at all if only I had known how to eat. And the only thing he could say was that it was a nervous problem. Total failure on the part of my family doctor. Next time we'll talk about my first attempt at vegetarianism.
Okay?
Homework. Number 1, don't eat butter or oil that has been fried or heated. Number 2, fruit should only be eaten on an empty stomach. Number 3, proteins and carbohydrates should always be separated. Number 4, if you do not feel well in any way, don't eat proteins until later. Number 5, don't eat when you are angry, tired, or unhappy. Number 6, don't eat immediately before sleeping. Number 7, drink 4 liters of water per day, per weight approximately 1 liter for every 15 kilos or 30 pounds, on an empty stomach or 3 hours after the main meals, adding between 30 and 100 grams of honey per liter, and if you like, lemon juice. This is not for diabetics. Number 8, keep wrapped ice packs on the abdomen to the right and left of the navel for 6 to 24 hours a day, not if you're pregnant. Ice packs must be so well wrapped that no cold is felt. Number 9, decongesting massage with weights from 1/2 hour to 2 hours a day. Homework. We deliberately excluded proteins from the detoxifying diet, and that makes everyone worry. I'm not saying that the human body doesn't need proteins, but these proteins need to get to the spleen before they start to putrefy. Otherwise, we're going to have big problems. We've said that our body can survive for 2 months without food before dying. So, when patients who've been subjected to intoxication from smoking and medicines and putrefaction get the chance to clean out their systems without protein, there is no need to worry. And it's going to take a long time. It really takes years, but in the first 2 months, you can do a lot. It's like taking the wrong road. What is most important is first to realize it. Second, turn around. And third, accelerate by doing your homework seriously. Now, when is it that we can reintroduce proteins? Well, the answer is when there are no intestinal obstacles, when we can chew and digest and assimilate and eliminate these proteins in 24 hours, and when all of our symptoms have left. The problem with an immature approach to diets is that the patient thinks, the doctor said that I can eat meat, fish, or eggs, and so he eats them all the time. But what I want to teach you is a more responsible attitude. If you've done a week or two of detoxifying, and now you're starting to eat proteins again, you might try doing it on alternate days. Just eating fish with salad, for example, or for vegetarians, a plate of legumes and salad for lunch, and in the evening, just a bit of vegetables, so that there is no chance of congestion. When there is a loss of energy in our lives, which certainly compromises the intestinal efficiency, then go back to the detoxifying diet. Don't get the idea that previously I was sick, now I'm well, so I don't need to take any special dietary precautions. It's our responsibility to keep our intestines clean and in good working order. This way of changing from a detoxifying diet to a normal diet with proteins and whole foods, and vice versa, is our own responsibility, and no one is ever going to change that. In the next episode, we'll talk about vegetarianism. Now I see clearly. In this program of health education, we have always talked about a message that Marco knows well. His work at the Teatro Stabile in Catania gave us the chance to meet. I asked him if he would be willing to give you his opinion about health and explain his ideas, especially concerning the responsibility that each one of us has for our own health. He will begin right away with his own views without any questions from me.
Credo che esistano, quando si parla di salute si parla soprattutto secondo me di cibo, e quando si parla di cibo generalmente si parla solo di cose materiali, cioè nel senso che il cibo è i primi piatti, il pesce, la carne, la verdura.
When we deal with health, we talk above all about food. And when we talk about food, we mean something material, that is, the food that we eat.
L'uomo, siccome è una struttura molto complessa, credo che Paul poi ne avrà parlato dell'uomo nelle sue varie composizioni, non solo di fisiche, credo che quando si parla di salute...
Man has a very complex structure, and I believe that Paul has already talked about the various human components.
Quello che noi, come dire, noi diamo al nostro corpo quotidianamente più volte al giorno.
I believe that when we talk about health, it's necessary to think that material food is not the only one, although of course it's fundamental, and of course the body certainly needs it.
Olistica, chiamiamola così per intenderci, cioè dell'uomo globale, esistono anche altri tipi di cibo. Abbiamo, per esempio,
there are many types of food from my point of view, and not only from my point of view, but from that of the medicine which is called esoteric. But perhaps it would be better to refer to it as natural or holistic, in the sense that it sees the human being globally.
Cioè la qualità del nostro pensiero. E poi c'è ancora un'altra fonte di cibo che è la...
There is the food that we receive from our breathing, that is, from the quality of our breathing. Breathing is a source of food for our body.
I quattro cibi fondamentali che servono all'uomo.
Then there's another source of important food. That's our thoughts, the quality of our thoughts.
La capacità che noi abbiamo di respirare.
And then there's another source of food, which is the quality of our emotions.
Non bisogna trascurare queste quattro qualità. Quando si fa un'indagine, secondo me da un punto di vista...
Therefore, these four foods that serve man are solid foods, aerial foods, thoughts and emotions.
Non solo cosa mangia, cosa beve, Ma che tipo di qualità di vita ha? La qualità della vita è data non solo da cosa
When we talk about medicine, we cannot disregard these qualities.
che tipi di emozioni uno tende a sviluppare o tende a coltivare.
When a clinical investigation is done, it's necessary to understand how the patient nurtures himself from these 4 points of view and ask about the quality of life he has.
Dice, va tutto male, il lavoro mi va male, questo mi va male, quell'altro mi va male, e devi fare un esame.
This is a very wide and complex subject that leads us to understand many things about the patient.
Una donna, io amo quella donna, ma mi andrà male, quello gli andrà sempre tutto male.
For instance, if a person complains that his life is negative, that everything goes against him, and that he can't face life, he will create more negative situations for himself, and then he won't be able to face them. And by propagating a vicious cycle of negative energy, he continues to worsen his situation.
Quindi si dice aiutati che il ciel t'aiuta, vuol dire
Instead, we must try to think positively and to develop the positiveness towards others and ourselves. This is already a source of extraordinary food.
se stessa agli altri. Questa è già una fonte di cibo assolutamente straordinario, non solo per chi lo produce, ma anche per le persone che ti stanno intorno. Tant'è vero che nel sud, no, nella cultura napoletana per esempio, c'è quello che porta sfortuna, si dice. Quelli che portano sfortuna sono per lo più persone che hanno questo atteggiamento negativo nei confronti della vita.